28th, noon Central Time. I'm here in Huntsville, Alabama. Today we're going to talk about month 5 for Homeward Bound. I've got a few other things to talk to you about first. We'll give a few minutes as people start to join us in here. First, I'll tell you about the quilt behind me because someone is surely sure to ask. This is a pattern called Full Circle. It's a Wendy Williams pattern, and you know Wendy Williams designed our 2021 block of the month, Color My World, which was also a circular pattern. But the great thing about this quilt is it's made in quadrants. It's in 4 quarters, and I am very excited to announce that I am going to be teaching this at Empty Spools Seminar next March 1st to the 6th, 2024. I have always wanted to attend, to go to Empty Spool Seminar for the years and years and years I've known about it. And everyone I know who's taught there has raved about what a great place it is to teach. So I have a blog coming up about it with the information about this. Registration hasn't opened yet, but it will very soon for next year. Alex has assured me that this class will fill. She took one look at it and said, oh my gosh, that class will fill. The great thing about that seminar, besides the beautiful place it's located in Monterey, California at the Asilomar Conference Center, you work with one teacher for 5 days. You get a really intense seminar experience. And in that 5 days, we will make that first quadrant, which was there in the upper right, has the green background. That's quadrant A. We will get that done 99%. There's a little bit of handwork that might take some longer if you wanted to do some hand embroidery stitches, which you wouldn't have to do. You could do it all by machine. So I am very, very excited that I'm on that faculty for this particular event. It is, again, March 1st to the 6th of 2024. And as I said, my blog will have a little bit more information about it. And as soon as registration is opened, I will let everybody know. So that's one thing I want to tell you. Another thing I want to tell you about is a free class that you can take part in with Ricky. Ricky Timms is going to be teaching his class, and I'm going to pull up some pictures while I talk to you about it. So let me share my screen here so that I can show you the pictures. Okay, this is the quilt he's calling Portal. It's a new design of his, and it has just that one repeating shape, which he calls a ladyfinger, which I think is pretty cool. The class is free to participate, just like Alex's classes have been all along. Anyone can join. It will be taught by Ricky. It will take place on May the 8th, the 12th, and the 15th. And then there will be a showcase on the 5th of June where everyone who has completed the quilt can show off what they've done, and that'll be really exciting too. They take place just exactly like we're showing you now, this Facebook Live. Some of you are watching on our YouTube channel, the Quilt Show's YouTube channel, the same exact place, but a different time, 2 hours earlier than when you normally meet with us here. Alex and I both start at 10 a.m. Pacific, but Ricky's class is going to go at 11 a.m. Eastern. That is 2 hours earlier than now. So mark that down and be watching for that. Plus, of course, the Quilt Show's website has all this information as well. He's going to show how to make that quilt. It can be personalized by changing the placement and the color and the value. You see here how he's got a very light center and it gravitates out. How really cool is that? You can do all kinds of things with this. And you're really going to learn about color and value and how changing that will really change the look of your quilt. Then we've got some kits available with 2 different sets of fabrics. So let me show you those. Let me find my other pictures here. There's one set of fabrics, and they come in these great strips. It's just an easy way to have all these. They're ombre. Ombre means that the colors change from, in a blue, for example, from a lightest blue to a dark blue on the same piece of fabric. It really allows you to do a lot of great things with fabrics. I really enjoy working with ombres. So that is Jennifer Sampu ombre. And let me see what else we've got. There's this one. I'll show you these pictures here. If you get either of the kits, there are 2 options kits. One's batiks, and then one is the this ombre. It does come with a printed pattern. If you don't buy the kit, you'll still be able to download the pattern in order to join and get involved with the class. So there's a picture of that batik. Ugh, I just love batiks, and that is luscious and gorgeous too. So if you're interested in considering this, you simply can go to the our website. Let me click out of here, and I'll get you in there and show you that too. And there we go. So you can go to the shop, or from the home page, there's actually a link. Let me just click on the home button. Cute little house right there. Now available, Ricky Tim's Portal Quilt. Click here. Having trouble talking this morning. Okay, so let me go back to the webcam for a second. Cool. Okay, so hopefully everyone who is joining us has come on in. If you have any questions, you can ask them on the just the comment section there, and I will take a look as a little bit later when I can see that. I've seen several people have joined us already, so that's really great. Okay, now let's start talking about Homeward Bound, our 2023 block of the month. I'm going to switch to my document camera here. Okie dokie. And this month we are back to piecing again. So I'll just show you real quickly on this my sample, and then we'll talk about how to make these half square triangle units. Okay, so we have large half square triangles that are joined together to form what is, to me, is a goose, a flying goose, a big triangle. They are 2 inches finished, so they're 2.5 inches when you make them, including seam allowances. We have large ones and we have small ones. The small ones are 1 inch finished, and you put 2 of them together, that's going to be a 2-inch finished little goose. Of course, this will be a 4-inch little finished goose. And in order to round these 2 small ones out, they're joined with rectangles of background fabric. And all the instructions, cutting sizes, of course, and everything are in there. So the other thing just to mention while I have this out for you to look at is that Sarah planned the lights and the darks in specific locations. Now, all of the fabrics that you see here are not the kit fabrics, because I actually had to start making this before I got my kit fabrics, actually a couple months before I did. So this one here, which is a Tula Pink fabric, is not part of the collection that's in there. But I put in all kinds of different things, different pieces and things like that. We will also have just a little bit of applique to do, these cute little sprigs, I think Sarah calls them, a small stem, 4 little leaves, and a circle bud on the end. So, but one other thing, since I'm here to show you this, we will not be able to finish this entire middle this month, because in month 6, you make all of the star blocks for the rest of the quilt, including this one. Now, this is a 4-inch finished star block, and you would know that because obviously this is going to be 4 inches here when you make this. But Sarah's instructions are different from what I did. She makes these geese units here, these star points, out of half square triangles. So she has a seam in each one of these sections here where these 2 points, star points, are joined. There's a seam down the middle of background fabric. I made these into flying geese, and so on my blog for the 1st of June, which I'll give you all the measurements that I did for that. I like to make 4 flying geese at once, and I make them oversized so I can custom cut and trim them down. And since it takes 4 flying geese to make this sawtooth star, it's just, to me, it was really easy to make it that way. So you'll have Sarah's instructions and you'll have my alternative suggestion if you want to do them that way. But once we get into June 1st, then you will have all the sizes and the fabrics and everything that you need for figuring out and making the star blocks. And you'll make the star blocks for the entire rest of the quilt. Okay, let's talk then about flying geese. Half square triangles, a real backbone shape that we use in piecing all the time. So these are jelly roll strips, which are about 2.5. They're actually 2 5/8. This particular brand has their pinked edges on their jelly roll strips. From the outside edge to the outside edge is larger than 2.5. Some companies, the outside edge to the outside edge is exactly 2.5. So you just need to know which is the situation, what the measurement is, if it needed to be absolutely precise. So my favorite way of making half square triangles is to use a half square triangle ruler. I've taken two fabrics that I want to use to make, and these are these little guys here. Okay, I'm going to make these larger half square triangles. I will need two of them, and when I sew them together, then I'll have the piece for the border. They're put right sides together, and then I'm going to use a half square triangle ruler. So I've got two to show you. The one that Sarah designed that came in her accessory kit is blue. It's a pretty little blue color. And you lay it on these two fabrics that are right sides together. There's a 2.5 inch line right there at the bottom. It says 2.5. And the flat edge up there at the top should lay across the top. If you weren't using jelly rolls, you'd have straight edges. You wouldn't have the pinked edges. But that way it just shows you how it goes. So I'm just going to align this up. I'm not concerned about this sticking out at the end. I'm not going to trim that now. I'll trim that at the end because I'm going to check every one of these units once I make them. So the first thing I'm going to do is make this first cut. There's one unit that's ready to go to the sewing machine, and then I'm going to turn the ruler over. You don't flip it. I'm going to rotate it. So I'm going to go this way, and then I'm just going to rotate it, not flipped upside down. And same thing, I want the 2.5 inch line at the top, and I want the flat edge here at the bottom. And because my strip is slightly wider than 2.5, I'm going to have a little bit extra each way, and I'm fine with that. Okay, come straight up. Okay, so here are two of these units ready to be fed through the machine. When these rulers were designed, they were designed so that you could chain piece these through in this manner, starting with the flat edge going through at the top. Now, this is just the opposite of what Sarah says in her video. Sarah finds that for her, it makes more sense for her. She likes to start with the pointy edge first. I find that I like to start with this flat edge first. I usually have a leader, a scrap of fabric, or two squares that I'm sewing together. I make a lot of quilts with leader enders, little other additional kind of units. A lot of them are 1.5 inch squares sewn together, things like that. But once you've got these chain pieced together, there's those two. Okay, then I've just left them here chain piece so you could see them. Then you need to press either open or to one side or the other. I prefer to press toward one side. Now, Sarah does show in her video, she talks about this, when you go to join two of these half square triangles. Excuse me. The little sip of water there should help. You want one of these seams to come down toward the dark and one to go up toward the light. And that'll allow this junction here, this seam, to nest. So I don't press these real hard at first. I just kind of give them a light press. And then when I decide which one's going with which fabric, and you would have a variety of these fabrics, I just happen to have these two right here, then you could see which one you want to press up toward the light. This one went down toward the purple, and this one I flipped up toward the green, the lighter fabric. And Sarah shows that as well on her video. So always be sure you look at her videos as well. Okay, so I just have a bunch of these chain all the way along. They're ready to be cut apart and then trimmed. So before I do that, I'm going to show you this other half square triangle ruler. Okay, and this is a great ruler from Quilter Select. I call it the big ruler that does everything. It's a 3-in-1 half square triangle combo ruler. One section allows you to cut half square triangles exactly like I just showed you with the blue one that Sarah designed. One corner cuts squares. So if I wanted to cut 2.5 inch squares, for example, I could use my, put them together here. Okay, I could use this section there, put this one over here as a 2.5, make this cut. Or if I was making quarter square triangles, there's an entire other section with quarter square triangles. The ruler comes with a whole lot of information that you can find on the website, of videos and all kind of great things on how to do it. So that's another option for how to make them. So that's just using the half square triangle ruler. Now let's talk about trimming these things. Right? Because these were slightly wider than they needed to be. Remember, they're about 2 5/8. and I'm going to want to trim this to be the exact right size. I could use that big ruler that I just showed you, or I could use a smaller one, and I'm going to show you a smaller ruler. I check every one of my units. I often say if this unit is not the right size now, it will not miraculously become the right size when you do the next thing. So I want to check and make sure that I got it right. I always say you don't have to sew to perfection if you can trim to perfection. So every good quality ruler, these square rulers, and certainly all of the R and K ones, the Quilter Select rulers, have a diagonal line. Because I'm right-handed, I'm working from the upper right to the lower left. And I'm going to put first the diagonal line right in place, right there. And I'm just checking to make sure I have at least 2.5 inches all the way around. Okay. I'm coming up, and then I'm coming over. Okay. Those little guys out of there. Then I'm going to turn the piece around 180 degrees. The part that I just trimmed is this side down here. So now I'm going to put the ruler back again at 2.5. I want to look and make sure I'm 2.5 here, 2.5 here, and that the diagonal line is exactly across the middle. And it is. And then I'm going to come up here and over here. Okay, so I have this much waste of the fabric, but I have a precisely sewn little unit. When you have, so this would be this one right here. Okay, I'd make another, if I was making another one, it looks just like this, and then I would join it with something else. So that's the option using the half square triangle rulers. Okay, but I do trim everything and check it. I'd rather find out now. I always say find the mistake the first place you make it, not after you sew two pieces together that are too large and now the entire thing is too large. There is one other little method that allows you to make these if you don't have a half square triangle ruler, and Sarah talks about this as well. And here's my little, I always have the pieces all right handy, and then they go, here we go. Okay, so remember that these are, the large ones have to be 2.5 now, including seam allowance, because they're 2 inches finished. And when you join these two together, they should be 2 inches finished plus 2 inches finished plus 1/4 and 1/4 on either side, 4.5. 2.5 high by 4.5 wide. And I check myself as I get these sewn together. Again, if my seam allowance was slightly too wide or slightly too skinny, this is not going to be the right size. I want to find out where I have an error before I get too far down the road. But if you don't have the half square triangle ruler and you want to just make it from squares, most patterns have this squares method. When they do half square triangles, they give you the squares method. And I can always tell because they add the true quilter's math to a half square triangle, which is to add 7/8 of an inch to the finished size. The finished size, again, means when it is sewn in the quilt. So this will be 2 inches finished, 2 plus 7/8. The instructions will tell you to cut 2 7/8 inch squares. For the little 1 inch ones, these guys, 1 inch finished plus 7/8 would be 1 7/8. That is, in fact, true 100% quilter's math, and every pattern typically will use those numbers. I never cut 1 7/8 or 2 7/8. I bump it up to the whole number. I'd much rather cut a strip that's 3 inches or 2 inches than 1 7/8 or 2 7/8. It's easier to cut the larger ones. I can use them for more things later. And I am willing to waste a little bit of fabric for a lot more perfection. So here, all I did with these in order to make this unit the size that I want it to be is I'm going to take 2 squares, have a diagonal line down the center, which I mark with a fine mechanical pencil. This is my marking tool of choice whenever I can use it. And so 1/4 inch on either side. And you see after this has been cut apart and pressed, I'll have one little bitty cutie on this side and one little bitty cutie on the other side. And then I made a different set out of the other 2 colors, and then the same thing applies. Seam allowance down, seam allowance up. So I'll just use my square. All quilter's math would tell you to cut the square at 1 7/8. I'm not going to cut it 1 7/8. I'm going to cut it at 2. And you could cut it larger even if you wanted to. Okay. And then a simple matter to take your ruler and there are other ways. You don't have to draw a line. Some people have a little device on the bed of their throat plate, on the bed of their sewing machine, that gives them a little line that they can follow through. Let's say that this was the line here, and I could actually sew right along it as I ran it through my machine. But that's what I did with this one here. I just got it ready. I put sewed a 1/4 inch on either side, and then I would cut them apart and press to one side or the other. Some people like to press open. Perfectly, it's your quilt. You get to decide. And then trim them to exactly 1.5, just like I trimmed the this one to 2.5. These get trimmed to 1.5. When you join these two together, 1 plus 1 is 2 plus a 1/4 inch on either end. This is 2.5 by 1.5. And I double checked myself. And the first place I look is the center. What is half of 2.5 is 1.25. I put the 1.25 line right there, and then I trim off anything that sticks out beyond that. It's 1.5 high by 2.5 wide. And this wider one here was 4.5 wide by 2.5 high. I do like to press these seams open in the middle. It just seems to help and keep things flatter. I've got a small one here and a larger one there. So those are the basics of half square triangles, whether you use a ruler or the squares method. Let me make sure I've showed everything that I wanted to talk about on that. And color placement. The color placement comes from I'm going to go back to the webcam for a second, okay? And talking about the color placement, again, as Sarah has said, she's got the light blocks on one side. Oops, got rid of the camera. And then the darker ones on the other. And I did that some, but not 100% precisely. I probably got them turned around somehow, and I just didn't worry about it. When it all went together, let's see, this is how it looks like here. I thought it was fine the way it is, and nobody's going to know. Yes, here's a clear example. I got a light one up here. Wait a minute. A light one is down, and on the other side, where'd you go? Where are you? Light one down, and a light one up. That's just the way it went. It's my quilt. I got to decide. So that's how these are made for this month. So you'll like the piecing. I think you'll find it easy. You can use, if you're working from the kit, use the charts in the fabric requirements chart. It tells you each fabric by the month. And you can look at each fabric, look for month 5. It'll say large triangles or small triangles. And that's the easiest way for you to go through your fabrics and figure out which one goes where. But it really doesn't matter. You do have tons of fabric. If you have one fabric you really like and one fabric, not so much, don't use the one you don't like so much. Just use the other one and replace them some if you like. You can, whatever you want to do. No one's going to count it at the end and go, how come she has 2 blue ones when she should have had 4? Whichever you like, it's your quilt, so you get to decide. The next thing, so here, tip. Big tip, just for those of you watching the live. I haven't written about this on my blog. And by the way, my blog for month 5 and the patterns for month 5 will be released this Sunday, April 30th, 2 days from today. So they're coming out on Sunday morning, April 30th. So be watching for those. So big tip, just for those of you who are watching, because I appreciate that you take time to be here and that you do spend a little time getting a little bit more information, tips on how to make things easier for you. The border on the outside of the quilt uses these exact same shapes and sizes. I'm going to show you that again. Let me show you the quilt again. Share my screen. Where's my picture? Here we go. Bring this one. Okay. So here's a picture of the finished quilt, and there's several copies of this. You can find lots of different places for it on your quilt. So the border we're making right now is this one right here in month 5. Month 6, as I said, you'll add the 4 stars around the outside. In a moment, I'm going to show you my big border, this applique border. There's a reason we spend months 7, 8, and 9 making these 4 borders. They have a lot to them. I have one of them done, and I'm going to show it to you here in a second. But you see up here this next big piece border, exact same shapes, in the same sizes. You're not going to have all the information yet for this until we get to month 10, this applique stuff. And next month in month 6, you will make the stars that go here. But if you get all of this piecing done and you are just eager to do more, because you know how to make these and the sizes are the same, there are just more of them. See the large ones here? There's 1, 2, 3 large one, 1, 2, 3 large one going that way, 2 small ones here, 2 small ones there. They are the same sizes as this. So big tip, if you want to work on others things later and get ahead, and there's always people that do, that is something that you could be working on just over time. These make great little leader ender projects to me. Once I have the fabrics cut and ready to put through the sewing machine, while I'm doing other things, I can just be making these half square triangles. So, okay, let me go back to the document camera and I will show you my complete block at this point. Let me put this under here, and you're not going to be able to see it all that well. I'll hold it up when I get done. These birds are really pretty. This happens to be the top border. I have decided I'm not going to do the little teeny tiny heart that's in here, and I'm not going to do the little teeny tiny, very little teeny tiny eye. I'm either going to embroider the eye or find some adorable little black buttons that'll go right on there that make an eye. It's very small. It's no bigger than 1/4 of an inch. And I machine appliqued these birds on there. I used Quilter Select Print and Piece Fuse Light to make the shapes. I was able to run it right through the printer, and I pressed those, I glued the edges down, and then I just machine appliqued. All the rest of this, I did machine applique my stems because that's the easiest way for me to do these long stems. It's just so fast. But all the rest of this is hand applique. So you can just see how many, I will tell you there are 20 leaves on each border. All right, and these little guys here, I did change out. I'm using the kit fabrics, but I changed out this dot in the center. I had the fabric was a real pale color, and I decided I wanted something with a little more depth to it, so I put that one in there. And here's a little more, and then on the other side is the other bird. And finally over here on the end, I've got the stem. You'll have to join the left and right sides before you can join the top and bottom, and we'll talk much more about that in months 7, 8, 9, and 10 coming up. So, okay, back to the webcam. All right. So that is a good bit of information to put out here. Oh, you can maybe see it better here. Someone asked the other day about fraying, and I'm going to show you this. Obviously, this is not the background fabric that's in the kit fabric. It's the one that I chose because I had to start before I got my kit fabric. And I am having a good bit of fraying here along this edge because this is a lot of handling that I'm keeping it in my hands the whole time because I am doing needle turn applique on most of this. So there were some suggestions. Some people said they serged the outer edges. My first thing that I did that I quickly decided wasn't going to work for me is I cut the borders wider, but you have to join this section over here to the middle, and it wasn't going to work out that I had so much larger on one piece but not the other, and I said, okay, I just have to trim it to be the size. So some people did suggest serging the edges. Someone else suggested fray check. I'm just like living with it. I'm not losing it completely. I guess you could stay stitch about 1/8 of an inch. Just don't have the stitches be really tight because that would pull in. You don't want the stitches really loose. Maybe a 3.0. I piece with typically a 2.0. So that's another alternative. But you can see that, yes, I do have some fraying going on here, given that we're going to work on these 4 borders for months 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so there's that. All right. Okay, now let me, I do encourage you to, I'm going to go look for questions here in a second. I do encourage you to use the forum. That is the best place for you to ask questions and get lots of answers. Several people this month and there's always 2 topics for each month, which is I have to write them yet, post it here. I will do that a little bit later today, probably. Month 5, show your progress here. And month 5, ask your questions here. That's a good place for you to just put those things so that everybody knows right where to go and where they saw a question and what the answer was or where they showed progress. And several people this month have said, boy, it really helped them with the hollyhock blocks to see that other people also had some of those hollyhock leaves or coneflowers. It was the coneflowers that had sort of grown a little bit, depending on what their method was for how they were turning the edges. And so they had some overlap of some of the leaves or circles that are on the hollyhock block. And when other people could see that, oh yeah, I'm not the only one that happened to, and you know what, it looks okay, I'm fine with that. So that's those kinds of positive reinforcements can be helpful for you. So do take a look at the forum from time to time. That is the best place to ask your questions and get your answers. I check it all the time. I am heading to Texas. I say I'll be gone to Texas on Sunday, April 30th, which is why we did this today instead of next week. I will be in Huntsville, Texas, then the Woodlands, and then Lufkin. All on my blog, the teaching calendar lists each of the places. I'll do a lecture at each location and a different class at each location. So I love my time in Texas, and I'm really looking forward to this visit. Let me look for questions. All right, so let me go to my questions. There we go. All righty. Okay, let's go back here. I'll start writing. Wisconsin and Florida and Maryland. Ann Shabut, she's here from Virginia. I saw her a little bit ago. Ann follows my blog, and last week I had fabrics for sale, bundles of fabric, and she jumped on one and bought a beautiful bundle of fabric, which was delivered to her house today. And just a little while ago, she let me know how happy she was to see the bundle. So hello, Ann. I'm glad you're here. Austin, Texas. I will come to Austin anytime, Roland Bobbin. Get your guilds to holler at me. I want to come to Austin anytime. Bellevue, Washington, Portland, the Woodlands. Vanetta, I hope I see you next week. Hello, San Antonio. That's another place. Melrose, Washington, New Zealand. Hey there. Great to see you, Jennifer. Yakima, Livermore. That's got to be Randy. Yeah, Rondi. Hey, Rondi. Terry in Florida. Greetings. New York, love that ruler and my tutorial. A couple people told me that I cost them money when I do these tutorials and show that great ruler. People bought them. Victoria is one of my buddies. She's taken classes from me and was on our retreat this time. Sarah says that a pinking rotary cutter is great for applique backgrounds. Yes, and I have one of those. You'd think I'd have thought to use it. Great idea. That is, yep, I'm going to Sarah, thank you. I will put that in the blog when we get to month 7 and talk about cutting those things out. Great idea. Thank you, Rondi. Rondi says I look great. Yes, I have lost 72 pounds in the last year or so. Let me see if some of Fielke's. Okay. Yep. And then John's put in some information there on the accessory kit. Looks like they've got some more of those available. So that's really a good thing too. I have with me today a special guest. So let me see if she can come and join us. She is my adorable granddaughter, Stella. She has a day off from school today, so Mom and Dad asked if she could come spend the day. And she has learned she's made some quilts and done some quilt blocks. She asked for a sewing machine for Christmas. And here, I think she's coming. There she is. Hey there, Stella. Yay. This is our little adorable granddaughter, Stella. And so do you want to say hi to the people?
Hi.
What's your favorite thing about sewing?
Learning how to sew for my teacher.
Oh, learning how to sew for her teacher. Well, that's great.
Which is you.
Well, of course. So anyway, as most children, Stella is a maker. She loves to be creative, and it's really fun when you can work with young children and who are interested in playing with your fabric. And I never tell her, no, that's the wrong color. No, that doesn't work. She gets to decide. Her quilt gets to be whatever she wants it to be. She's made some quilts for her brother. She's made some quilts for her doll. She's made some pillows. She's had a good time. So,
and I know how to stitch.
And she knows how to stitch. I also taught her a little hand embroidery, and she actually embroidered her name, which was pretty cool too. So anyway, so let's say goodbye for the day.
Bye-bye.
And I will be back on the live for month 6, Friday, June the 2nd. And until then, that's a wrap.